Can Content AIQ create learning content in multiple modalities from my legacy course assets? I'm joined by Jeff Fissel, VP of Technology and one of the minds behind Content AIQ, to find out. Jeff, are you and Content AIQ up for the challenge?
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk with you about this today, Michael, and show everyone what we can do with the power of the technology.
All right, let's crack those knuckles, Jeff. What's the first step?
The first step is really to make sure we're grounding the tool on the information that's relevant. We hear quite often, we don't trust the results of generative AI. It's going to make things up. It's going to hallucinate. The key to preventing or mitigating that, you're never going to completely eliminate it, but mitigating that is building trusted knowledge bases of content and working off of that trusted knowledge. And that comes from your organization-specific knowledge, your existing learning content that you have, videos, things like that. So that's where we're going to start, is making sure we have a good understanding of that content and get that loaded into the system.
Okay, so give me some examples of the kind of content that AIQ likes to eat, if you will. I'm just coming off lunch, so I'm still a little hungry.
Absolutely. Well, it's built on the secure Azure Microsoft tech stack, so it loves Microsoft formats. So your Word, PowerPoints, Excel, all that kind of stuff that's there. But we've also spent a lot of time making it accept e-learning files from authoring tools. So your SCORM, XAPI, CMI5 type files, you can upload those zip files directly into the tool, and it'll do that really tedious job of clicking next through it all for you and understanding what's going on. So you can start to use that knowledge that's trapped and locked in some of those longer form e-learning content in some of the new work that we're talking about.
So another thing I've thought about is, how do you keep all this up to date?
Well, we've gotten that question quite often. And one of the things we've built into the tool is the ability for you not just to have to load content into it, but actually link to content on external websites or internal websites, and then set a refresh cycle. So you can say, hey, every day, every week, every month, I want you to pull this URL and grab the latest information and use that for all the creative work you're working on. So this helps you stay up to date so that you make sure you're not accidentally creating new work off of bad information.
Cool. I think I could handle that so far. Okay, so we filled the pipeline. What now?
Now's where the agents, the parsing agents that we've built in the tool come into play. You got to start to understand what's going on there, because in most cases, you're not going to have just a single file you're working off. You're going to have lots of files that might even have contradicting information in it. So what you're going to want to do is we've introduced a concept of knowledge bases, where we use a series of these parser agents that read through a set of content, understand the core topics and themes that are covered across that, and then start to build that index of vetted information. And it's very much a human plus AI equation here, where we're going to prompt the user to review that information and make sure that that is vetted and accurate information before it works through that process.
So you're bringing up some things that I'm curious about is, why would I even want to use AIQ versus something like ChatGPT?
We get that quite often, and we started with ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini and those, I'll say, generic but yet very powerful tools. And what we realized was they weren't built for learning content. They were two components. One is they were great if I had a single document or a couple things that I wanted to understand what was going on. But when I want to connect to my LMS that has the hundreds or thousands of pieces of content and start to build off of that, they quickly weren't able to handle that scale of what was going on. The other part was they didn't understand learning content. For example, e-learning. Zip files from e-learning problems wouldn't work. They didn't know what to do with those sort of tools. They didn't know how to understand instructor-led courses or VILT courses. So we had to build a lot of that kind of expertise into the agents. But we're using the same OpenAI model in the background. So it's not a new large language model. Think of these as a series of purpose-built L&D agents that are working inside of AIQ with the power of OpenAI and the Azure OpenAI services to make it even better for learning content. So we're going to understand that learning. And then the other area is we know what good learning looks like. So when you start to create new, and I know we're going to talk about that a bit more, we have that expertise built in. So when I say, hey, I want to build a podcast script, we're going to say, hey, here's examples of what good podcast scripts include. And we're going to bias and push the model to make sure it creates higher quality outputs as opposed to just generic sort of boring outputs.
Okay, so would that be an example of something you might put into a knowledge base then?
Yeah, so the knowledge bases are a great tool to start to organize the information and knowledge that you have around your organization. So you can create as many of those as you want in the tool, and you can start to vet that information, maybe on specific topics, functions, roles, products. You kind of create those knowledge bases. You have the SMEs validate the information that's in there. We have some pretty cool tools that help you do that along the way. And you start to build that trust that, okay, AIQ now understands my organization, my specific information. And then we get to the fun bit of starting to create that multimodality learning down this path, downstream.
Okay, that makes sense. Now I'm looking at the interface here. What about Workspaces? What's that have to do with the entire mix here?
Workspaces are a great place to work off grounded information that's relevant for a specific project or initiative. So you might have knowledge bases that cover tons of topics, but I want to work on this project right now that's only based on this one information. I don't want it to be able to reach the rest of the knowledge that I have in the system. You create a workspace and you say, hey, only focus on this. So in this case, I'll talk about leadership content. I want to focus it on building really specific leadership content on this topic. I'm going to load in only these knowledge bases on that content so that I know everything I work on in that tool is grounded based on that information only. So it's a little bit of a content organization ability, but also the ability to ring fence and ground the information that the LLM has the ability to work on as it starts to build these outputs.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding this. The knowledge base, it's like a special mix pulled together that I can draw upon. And a workspace is sort of like a collaborative, laboratory where fellow colleagues can meet and work, but without the need to sift through all the legacy content. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. Yeah, well said. You took what I said in many more words and simplified it down.
Okay, Jeff, I see we've got a lot of different outputs. Tell me about course outline.
Yeah, let's start there. That's always the best place, really. You want to start to organize and understand what you're doing before you start creating all the fun bits that we've already teased a little bit here, but like building that structure. And we've built in an output agent specifically to help you create course outlines. Because I don't think anyone ever wanted to really spend a ton of time doing that. So now you can use this agent. It's going to prompt you with a preset amount of questions to help make sure it creates a good course outline based on that subject. And it will help you craft the learning objectives, the outcomes, and the content that you can start to cover in this new multimodality content that we're about to start creating.
I have to say, this is looking really good. And if I'm understanding you correctly, this is only reading my enterprise data, right?
That's right. Yep, it's grounded and being generated based off of the information that we put in up front that we already talked about from the knowledge bases that we created.
Okay, that's awesome. That's one mode. I promised our listeners multi-modes. Show me more.
All right. One of the most popular ones recently is video and audio scripts. For some reason, people are loving podcasts today, Michael. I don't know. I know you host an award-winning podcast.
I'm kind of a fan of the podcast. I do like that genre right here. And, they run on a good script. What can you do for me?
Absolutely. So we've created some specific agents that have expertise in it of what good learning podcasts and entertaining podcasts have in it. It will prompt you with the appropriate questions, pull the right information out of you, and can start to draft the script of that podcast for you. And then once you have that script, you might be a little classic and have people like you and me read it and do it live, or you could start to use some of those synthetic audio generation tools like 11 Labs or Colossian, where they can actually clone our voices nowadays and create that content for us right from the tool. So in a matter of seconds, you can get that script, validate it, and start to hear someone, even yourself, read it.
Well, that's pretty cool. Let me also just double back here and thinking about different multi-modes. You mentioned podcast scripts, video scripts. What are some other use cases of this course script?
Yeah, course scripts are rather generic, but the idea here is I can take that to help me build an instructor-led course or a virtual instructor-led course, PowerPoint slides, webinar content, or content to go into e-learning. So it's kind of slide or topic-based learning. It starts to give you the content in a very structured format, give you ideas of how you can start to present that. If you say, hey, I want to build an e-learning versus I want to build an ILT or some other form of content like that, it has that expertise, knows what those things are, and can help you craft that content and get that out for you.
That's pretty awesome, Jeff. So just in general, how much time do you think we just saved on, let's say, a 15-minute course outline without the benefit of AIQ?
Everyone loves talking about savings, but to me, it really depends on the use case. Like, I've seen savings anywhere from 10, 20% up to 80 or 90%. And really where we see the savings come into AI is at scale. When I need to create not just one or two of something, but dozens or hundreds of something, that's where the real value of using AI you can start to see incredible cost savings and efficiencies as you start to use these tools.
Jeff, so far, it looks like we can do some amazing course outlines and course scripts, video scripts. What else does AIQ have up its multimodal sleeve?
Well, I'm not sure if this is a modality specifically, but how much do you like creating assessment questions, Michael?
Well, on a scale 1 to 10, if 10 is I love it and 1 is I'd rather eat sawdust, probably about a 1.75.
It's what we hear quite often, especially when you got to create those question banks and dozens or hundreds of iterations of questions. And it turns out AI can be really good at that if you tune it and do it right. That was something we've spent a lot of time is crafting our assessment agent to create high quality assessment questions. And whether you're creating 5 or 500, it doesn't matter. And you can start to spit those out real fast and have reliability and confidence that it's going to anchor back to the learning objectives and outcomes and all that initial work that we did up front, that it's not just going to grab random facts and create assessment questions. It's going to be anchored on sound instructional design principles of creating high quality assessments.
Yeah, and I love those prompts that are right there. So the same kind of things a really expert instructional designer would ask during a kickoff meeting. I think that to me really blows my mind, is how much this is multiplying my force there.
Yeah, let's take a look at an assessment here. I'll pull one up where I've already prompted and created the assessment questions. And you'll notice that as I expand these, that we're going to bring in a lot of the stuff that we know our learning design teams are going to need, the correct and incorrect feedback. We're going to give you the ability to refresh and regenerate elements with the click of a button. And we really focused on using this to accelerate what people are doing today and help them be able to do more, and to automate some of that stuff that, like you said, eating sawdust, like that really they don't want to do.
Jeff, I have to say this, you had me at assessment, but when it comes to generating learning of multiple modalities from legacy content, you've made an AIQ believer out of me.
No sweat.
Okay, where can our viewers find out more about this amazing new platform?
I think a website is the best place to start. So please go to gpstrategies.com, fill out the form. Happy to jump on a call and talk with anyone about the tool technology that we're building. And I just love your excitement about this, Michael.
Well, it's easy when it's this amazing. Thanks, Jeff, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in for this AIQ adventure. Be sure to check out the GP Strategies YouTube page for more AIQ adventures.